afternoon, everyone. I'm Gail Birks, and I'm your host and tour guide for the Readiness Factor. This month, I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, customer service and client retention. That's something that all entrepreneurs are interested in. But to join me in this conversation, I brought in an expert for you all to join in the chat room with me on. His name is Richard Shapiro. Let me give you a quick introduction about Richard, and then I'm going to bring him into the chat room because Richard is such a formidable figure in this arena. I could take the whole 30 minutes of our show talking about him in the introduction. In 1988, he founded TCFCR, which is the Center for Client Retention, and that specializes in customized research, training, and consulting to Fortune 1000 companies who want to increase their percentage of customers and increase market share. But prior to that, Richard was an executive with ADP, and through his ingenuity and innovation was important in that drive for that customer-centric organization to grow. He has served as an adjunct professor in the Fashion Institute of New York and Technology in New York, where he does reside during the cooler months of the year in spring and summer. He serves on numerous advisory boards in business and industry. And he is the author of two books who he will share a little bit more about later on in the show. But without further ado, I'd really like to bring our guest for this afternoon, Mr. Richard Shapiro. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gail. It's a pleasure being on your show. And I know we've had a few conversations in the last couple of months about this program, and I'm very excited about it.
Yes. I'm so glad to have you. And, for those of us who are joining us for the first time, this is a roundtable chat room. So if you feel the need to join us in the chat, please jump in and do so, or put your comments into the chat box. We tend to have a lot of people join us that way, but this conversation is for you. So, Richard, let me jump right in. And once again, thank you. But tell us a little bit more about your background and why customer service and client retention. Why?
Sure, Gail. I appreciate the question. Well, first of all, I'd like to share with the audience, how I learned about customer service, because I think that's really important. When I was growing up, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my dad owned a small men's retail store in northern New Jersey. And every Saturday, I went to work with my father. He wanted me to learn from him. And my job was actually manning the cash register. It was in the center of the store, so I could see every interaction that my dad had with customers. And the three things that I learned, I'd like to share. I've learned many things, but three that I'd like to share with the audience are: number one, my father taught me that customers are people first, customers second. Every customer is a person first. Second, he taught me the importance of welcoming everybody into the store, just like he'd welcome them into our home. To my father, the store was just an extension of the home. And lastly, he taught me the importance of creating an emotional bond from day one with each customer. So I have taken those principles and I use them at ADP, and I certainly have used them today when we consult with our clients. So, that's my background. And I could go into the ADP just quickly. When I started with ADP, I was about 21 years old. The revenues were about $40 million. I started out as an account executive. I was in client services management. I was general manager of ADP's largest region. And in my last job, I was vice president of client retention and customer satisfaction. And when I left ADP, the revenues had gone to $4 billion. So it was a very nice ride with ADP. I learned so much, and of course, I contributed to the company, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like all of your career, you have been customer facing.
Absolutely.
And I can relate to that because one of the things that we look at as a differentiator for our organization is it's the customer first. And without the customer, there's no reason even showing up for work. There's no reason for being. But it is so interesting to know also when you um, when you look at the kind of research that you generate for your clients. What are you looking for? And what is the outcome? Because I notice you also do training for them once you have done that. What are you seeking when you do your research?
Well, when we're doing our research, we're looking not just for customer satisfaction, which is really important, but uncovering those business and strategic issues that are on the mind of customers so that our clients can incorporate those findings into their strategic plans, into their marketing plans, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, we do work for a lot of small companies and a lot of large companies. But if you go to the president of the company and you say, you know what, we did a survey and we found out that our customers think our employees are polite. Well, that's nice and it should be the basic, but that's not going to be valuable to the CEO. What's going to be valuable to the CEO is, are we meeting the customer's needs? What other services can we offer? Do they feel that we're responsive? Do they feel that we have good follow-up? Do they feel that we're taking whatever we're giving them and helping their business or meeting their goals or everybody has hopes. Are we fulfilling their hopes? When they're a client of ours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And
it's information more even than it's satisfaction.
mhm. And what kind of conversations do you have when the findings and the feedback isn't favorable? How do you guide them through that balance of getting back to the center or on the right side of customer service?
Well, that's an excellent question. We have a process, and I know that, your company, CMA, also is involved with process improvement. Our process is centered around, the customer experience. So I think a lot of people sometimes talk about customer service and then customer experience. To me, customer service is more of like kind of a one-time interaction, like you call your electric company or you buy a shirt in a store or a blouse in a store. Uh, you have an issue maybe with your cable company. That's kind of customer service. But for businesses, I think it's really important to talk about the customer experience. But most people don't know what the customer experience really is. So
Right.
I did, just like you might have done the same thing. I divided or segmented the customer experience into 8 specific components. Each component actually is tied to a human emotion. So the 8 components are make me feel welcome, which
Mhm.
is important both in the sales cycle as well as once you have them as as a customer. Make
Right.
me feel welcome, give me your full attention, answer more than my question, know your stuff, which is really important.
Yes.
Don't tell
Yes.
me no, which is the only negative, which is the biggest loyalty killer. Um, you know what? I'm having a senior moment here, but what's going to help me is that in my book, which I've written, I have a bookmark which has all the 8 steps on it. So
Awesome.
don't tell me no was the last one I said. Invite me to return, show me I matter, and surprise me in good ways. And the first one, which is make me feel welcome, is tied into hope. No one goes into a store or goes on a website or tries to do business with a law firm or an accounting firm or a social services firm unless they're hoping something can happen.
Yes.
So if you can find out what that specific hope is and deliver a personalized roadmap to deliver that hope, you're
Yes.
definitely going to keep that customer forever.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's it's so awesome that you should say that because one of the things, and being in that business and being in a customer service and customer facing industry, the one thing that I always look for when I call someone for customer service is, are you going to just flat out tell me, no, we can't do, or are you going to say, this is a situation, but these are the alternatives? I'm always looking for alternatives when I reach out to the customer service.
Right.
And one of the things that, and I love those 8 points. And folks, those are in his book, and we'll show that too, talk a little bit more about that later. But that gets back into the variables of the sales cycle. And talk to me a little bit more, how those 8 points become integrated into the sales cycle, because that really is the definition of customer service. And it's separated. Once that sales transaction is closed, we forget that it really does. It's like marriage. It continues. That's when the work begins. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Now I'll give you two specific examples. And actually, I'm going to start off and probably just focus mostly on the most important one, which is the first one.
Yes.
Which is make me feel welcome. And I tell every business that the way they can change their business or improve their customer service is when anybody contacts their business for the first time, or really any time, don't ask them what their name is. Don't ask them what their account number is. The best thing to say is, I can help you with that, but do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
I is one of the strongest words in the English language, and it's only one letter. So by saying, I can help you with that, but do you mind if I ask you a few questions? People actually think that their hope might be obtained because they're actually speaking to someone who can help them. Now, I did a workshop for a small law firm, and like 6 months later, he said, Rich, you changed my business. You increased my business 20%. You know how? You told me to tell all my people and, instructed it, I can help you. And he said, they're actually in the insurance, they represent homeowners who have insurance claims. That's their business. But a lot of people who have insurance claims need temporary housing. So they formed a partnership with a firm that provides temporary housing. And he said, prior to your workshop, if somebody had called up, even a client, and said, do you provide housing? They would have said no, but. Now he said, they don't say no, but. They say, I can help you with that. They get all the information and they have somebody call back.
Yeah.
So the most important step is really feeling welcome. Another firm had told me that I said, when someone it was a computer repair company. When someone calls your company, what do they get? And they said, well, they get like a voice recording that says, press 1 for sales, press 2 for service. I said, why do you need that recording? Can't you just have 2 different telephone numbers? One that goes right into sales and then one goes right into service. He said, we've been in business 30 years. We never thought of that, So you should try to make it as effortless and as easy for customers to do business with you. One other thing that I want to say, which affects both the sales and an ongoing client, the time that it takes to get back to somebody, the longer you take to get back to someone, the less important they feel, okay? When you get back to someone right away, they feel important. If you get back to someone 3 days later, they don't feel very important. And during that time, they could easily go to one of your competitors.
Exactly. We have at CMA by the end of business day, if we miss the call, and before noon the next day, if you weren't able to respond that same day. It's just a policy of mine, and it goes straight to that point of feeling important. I want you to know, and I'm going to come back to that. But I've got some folks who are already typing into the chat box for you. You've lit up some light bulbs here. And I've got a couple questions for you, if I could jump in on that. How do you deal with customers nowadays, given that it seemingly feels more and more like customers are out there trying to catch you? You catch you in a misstep. and post it online, for example. So there's that vulnerability. What's your
Well,
guidance on that?
I think, one of my points is you have to give people, your full attention. You got to listen to them.
Yeah.
Uh, Listen, I've been around a long time and I've dealt with a lot of customers. To me, most customers, when they have an issue, it's a legitimate issue. That's what I would say. But sometimes customers are angry, and often it's hard to really deal with an angry customer. But I have found, especially with someone who's really angry, but you want to solve their issue and it's a legitimate issue, say,
Mhm.
listen, I want to help you. If you were in my shoes, what would you do for me to make
Yeah.
you happy? Okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
would what would you like us to do? And then, they might just say, well, all I want you to do is apologize. Or it could be, you know what, this shirt got ruined and I want you to replace it. I've been a customer for a long time. So I think it's good to have the listen and then have the customer say what they would do if they were in your shoes.
Exactly, exactly. We've got a comment that says it's like being on a website. You want to cut back on the amount of clicks it takes to contact you. So I want one click, two click, and there I am.
Right.
And so we just redid our website and it is so streamlined now that, you got two clicks and you're there. You got what you want. So let's go back to those 8 points again. And, I want to take a moment and let people learn more about this book, The Endangered Customer. One of the things that I do see out here now is that people become so involved in making the buck, um, working that core process. And this is something we saw in one of our clients. They forget about the customer, which, to your point, that endangered customer becomes first and foremost an endangered species. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How do we bring them off of the endangered species list?
Well, I think, when I was at ADP, um, I actually created the account manager program.
Yeah,
And just like in real estate, it's called location, location, location. For retention or customer service, it's relationship, relationship, relationship. And how do you maintain and keep that relationship? One of the ways, which is tied into my business and also into your business, is to collect feedback. Ask your customers their opinion. People love to give their opinion. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And when I found that at ADP, when I was traveling around the country with our account managers, I was smiling inside because I came up with maybe 10 questions that they could use every time they went in to see a decision maker. Some of those questions might be like, why did you originally do business with us? What works best? What would you like changed? Et cetera. And they gave that information. And when they gave that information, the relationship was actually more cemented. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, you can't, if you're dealing, let's say, with a company where there's a user and a decision maker, I'm going to say in the old days where you go to the company and you talk maybe to the bookkeeper and the CFO is the one that making the decision, and you stop in the CFO's office and they say, oh, how's everything going? Or you ask them and they say, fine. That doesn't mean anything. You're not building a relationship with that. But if you were to say to the CFO, listen, I'd like to sit down with you once a year and go through a few questions, the questions will give you valuable information, especially if you're a small company. And number two, it'll help build a closer relationship. The stronger the relationship is, the less likely the client is going to leave.
Right. Now, here's a twist on that same question. How do you convince those organizations who have heard the buzzword of client retention feedback, survey, analysis, but they really don't want to know what the findings were? How do you educate them on the fact that it really is okay to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's how you shore up your position? Talk to us a little bit more about that, because that's important.
No, that's an important question. Listen, I will tell you, it's never the company, it's the person at the company. All
Yeah.
right. And no matter what I would say, if the person really doesn't have confidence in themselves, or it could be in an organization that doesn't have a good culture, where
Mhm.
instead of when the results come back, let's say they're not so good or not so good, then people might say, well, why are they bad? All right. While some companies in a good culture will say, oh, these are the issues. Now let's, meet and come up with action plans to solve these.
Mhm.
So, it's a case by case business, but sometimes we've done this too, where we don't include satisfaction questions. We only include business opportunities or strategic issues or marketing, or how do you think we should better market ourselves, or how do you think we should get new clients? So
Yeah.
if it's not satisfaction, uh, that's another way that you might be able to avoid, that obstacle and still be able to collect the information through some kind of feedback mechanism.
Awesome. Awesome. I've got another question for you, but I've got one that has jumped onto the chat room for me from LinkedIn again. I told you our LinkedIn audience is pretty active. They want to take you back to those 2 points of those different numbers. Curious on your thoughts with where things are with automated systems when you call and it becomes so difficult to reach an actual person. I can see where some, maybe most issues can be taken care of like that, but doesn't that create more frustration on the customer side? Or is it just me that hates some prompts and it's not a bigger deal and that's why it's you so much? How elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well,
Automation versus live person.
well, if I had anybody who has a physical office, I think they should have a receptionist that answers the phone. I
Mm-hmm.
think that they're going to be much more successful. I think that receptionist has to be someone that's hired to be welcoming, to be enthusiastic, to be passionate. I hate when you go to a medical office for the first time and they know that most people who go to a medical office, there's something, I mean, they don't feel good, or
Right.
they have something wrong with them, and then that person is just nasty. Don't put a nasty person answering a phone or welcoming your customers.
Yeah.
I remember, and it's in my book, Museum of Natural History, years ago, they had everybody had to go to the will call office, and the will call person was like a security guard at a prison.
Oh,
Not
God.
familiar with it, but I'm just saying it just didn't make sense. And people were holding on to their hands because this person was so nasty. All right.
Wow.
So that's not the normal case, but there's a big difference between being nasty and being overly welcome. Like if someone says, "Oh, this is the first time at the doctor's office," say, "Oh, it's so nice that this is the first time here," whether it's in a store or
Yeah.
even if someone purchases something on a website for the first time. It's so nice that you contacted us or thinking about placing an order.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that we try to do as well, and that is thank people for reaching out to us or finding us. And that we're grateful. Doesn't matter how long we've been in business, we're always grateful when people find us and reach out to us. One of the questions that I do have, staying on that whole topic of the nightmare for customer service, um, how would you suggest uh, people be recruited and vetted for these types of positions? Because I think we all know everyone cannot be in a client facing position, especially customer service. It takes a very special kind of individual to sit in that seat. What are your thoughts?
Well, I do have some research on that because in my first book which was called The Welcomer Edge: Unlocking the Secrets to Repeat Business, I spent 3 years visiting libraries, medical offices, stores to find these very special people, and I called them welcomers.
Yeah.
Okay. And the interesting thing is, in all cases, every one, they had a history of volunteering. When they were young, they were babysitters, maybe they were nurses, they were teachers, they were swimming coaches. So if they, or maybe they, manned a homeless kitchen with their parents. Maybe they
Mhm.
worked at the firehouse. These people all had a history of helping others. So customer service is all about helping others. And if you
Mhm.
can find that in their background, that's an important piece of the pie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's just so important. You know, another comment that's come in from LinkedIn is the main difference is in what's the main difference in B2C versus B2B customers? And is there a difference?
Well, you're dealing with people, so in that case, it's the same, but it is different. I mean, when it's B2C, business is really dependent on reviews because that's what happens. If you go to a restaurant or cleaners, any kind of B2C, customers are going to make if once again, I think from the beginning we talked about sales. From a sales perspective, so many people do not go to a restaurant or a hotel if they have bad reviews. So I think I like when businesses or hotels or restaurants, do give an answer to every review, whether it's good or bad. I
Yeah.
think that makes,
Mhm.
a tremendous, difference. On a business, it's usually a longer term cycle where I think that's where more of my 8 point, 8 steps do come into be.
Mhm.
But, when you say no, and you brought this up before, and I said it, when you say no to a customer as the first answer, you've just lost the customer. I
Yeah, yeah,
a customer of a cell company for a long, long time, and I knew I deserved this credit. And all they said is no. And then when I actually, because I deal with, sometimes I meet some of these executives later on, maybe of a company, I said, why do you think they said no? And they said, you know what? All these stores have budgets for giving credits, and you probably saw them on the 30th or 31st of the month, and they ran out of money. So they had
yeah.
no choice. Okay. But it also doesn't make sense in a business where the assistant manager can't make a decision. I mean, don't make someone an assistant manager or a supervisor if they
And
can't
there,
make decisions. Give them a budget for making those decisions. It really is.
absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. I got one more question for you. How do you seek out those qualities in someone that would best fit that customer service and customer relations type position and the position in leadership, leading that type of team?
Well, I think the person has to always have a smile on their face, all right? I I
Yeah,
I think that's one of the most important things. You want to hire happy people, and when you have happy, you have to make employees happy by doing all the things, and you're not going to have happy customers unless you have happy employees.
right.
So, and I've also in that I'll just finish that I've experienced people who were welcomers that were wonderful and they had horrible bosses, and after 6 months they didn't care either. So
Yeah.
you need people want to give good service and they have to be, trained and they have to be reinforced and they have to be in an environment that's going to be welcoming and want to please the customer no matter what the business is.
And I love that. I love that point of view because one of the things that we do when we train leaders, one of the training components that we take them through is customer service. Because what we do is we flip the triangle and have them to realize that the people that work for you really are your customers. And that puts an entirely different perspective on that definition of what is customer service and who are the customers. And
Absolutely.
it helps define it better. Richard, it looks like we are near the end of our Readiness Factor podcast, but I would like for you to take a few more minutes, share those 8 points again, let folks see that book and know where they can find it, while I also put your contact information up on the screen for people who would like to continue the conversation with you, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
So the book is, first of all, if you want to connect with me,
Let me
there's
do this.
information, but on LinkedIn, I am the only Richard R. Shapiro that's all together. So that would be a way to connect with me. Um, The book can be found on Amazon on either print or audio. It's actually recorded by or narrated by the #1 narrator, Scott Brick. But
Awesome.
I have every book has these bookmarks in it. And if anybody wants to give me their address, I'd be happy, through LinkedIn, I'd be happy to send them, a bookmark, which has all the 8 steps, which are make me feel welcome, give me your full attention, answer more than my question, know your stuff, don't tell me no, which is the only negative, invite me to return, show me I matter, and surprise me in good ways. If you
Awesome.
incorporate those 8 steps, you'll have your clients for life.
And folks, Steve has put Richard's LinkedIn address in the chat box. So please check that out. And also, for your viewing, I've got his contact information on the screen. If you're ready to move that needle when it comes to customer retention, I've got the right guy here on the screen. If you're looking for organizational development and process and performance excellence and improvement, we're here for you as well. Give us a call, schedule a time. And Richard, I'm going to give you the last word, my friend. What can you leave our audience with today?
Well, I just want to give you one other hint. It also can help you close the deal. Never ask anybody, do you have any other questions, which is a closed-ended question, which yes or no. Ask, what are the questions you have? Most people will ask 3 more questions, and those 3 questions will help you close the deal almost every time. So always make it open-ended, not closed-ended.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate, being on your show today, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want you to know I've taken a 15-minute meeting and I've turned it into an hour and a half because of those 3 questions, that one question. So, so you are absolutely on point. Mr. Richard Shapiro, thank you so much. Customer service, customer retention extraordinaire. Folks, get in touch with Richard. Continue the conversation. Get his book. Those 8 points are priceless diamonds. Richard, thank you so much. Folks, we'll see you next month, second Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you soon.